Welcome to this episode of our program Arab Affairs. As usual, we will be discussing an important Arab file. But before I start with my introduction to the episode, let me first present our condolences to our brave soldiers who sacrificed their souls or rather lost their souls yesterday because of their defending the borders and the security and stability of the country. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi yesterday praised those Egyptian heroes and said on Twitter or on his social media account that terrorism is trying to destroy the country and that the Egyptian army is the shield that will defend Egypt against terrorism. The head of state added that the battle of combating terrorism is not yet over and will be won and will not be won without the will of the Egyptians to eradicate terrorism. Today we'll be speaking about the UN 74th General Assembly meeting, the speech of the president that had laid a vision to, or an Egyptian vision to the solution or to a permanent solution to the Arab causes. In his speech, the president spoke about several crises in the Middle East. He spoke about a permanent solution to the Palestinian cause that has been for more than 70 years now on the spot or the core of all the Arab problems. The president also spoke about the crises in Libya, Syria, Yemen, and demanded a permanent and very quick solution to those crises, or otherwise they would further deteriorate the situation in the Middle East and thus help the terrorism. The president also spoke about raising Sudan from the terrorism list since it has already overcame its regime that was very much in support of terrorism. Also, the president spoke about Egypt and Ethiopia and the Renaissance Dam negotiations, saying that we are open to negotiations, but that the water or the Nile is a matter of life and existence for Egypt. We'll be speaking about this and more in our episode. Before we delve into our discussion, first let's have a quick look on the Arab news that took place during this week, and we'll come back.
Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli headed a meeting of the Higher Committee for the Nile Water. Attending the meeting were Minister of Water Resources and Irrigation Dr. Mohammed Abdel Aati, Deputy Foreign Minister Ambassador Hamdi Louza, and representatives of the Defense Ministry and General Intelligence. The committee discussed preparations for the independent scientific group members in Khartoum between the 30th of September and the 3rd of October. That will be followed by Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia water ministers meeting, also in Khartoum, on the 4th and 5th of October. Russian news agencies said that Russia is expanding its Hamaymim air base in Syria, rebuilding a second landing strip to allow the facility to serve more aircraft. The Russian Defense Ministry also set up new buildings to house aircraft and the site that will defend against drone attacks. 30 fighter planes and helicopters are currently deployed at the base. Meanwhile, a new battalion from the Syrian army showcased their skills they have learned from Russia's military advisors. With military backing from Russia, Syrian army forces have retaken large parts of Syria from terrorists since 2015 and now control around 60% of the country. The UN Human Rights Council voted on Thursday to extend the mandate of war crimes investigation in Yemen after the group found evidence of grave violations by all sides in the conflict. The investigators appointed by the Council in 2017 reported earlier this month they had identified individuals who may be responsible for international crimes perpetrated during the fighting. A resolution renewing their mandate for a year faced opposition from several states, which leads a military coalition that intervened intervened in Yemen in 2015 to bolster the internationally recognized government against Iran-backed Houthi rebels. The Saudi envoy to the UN in Geneva, Abdulaziz Al-Wasli, accused the investigation of publishing non-credible, unfounded information which hadn't even been verified.
Welcome back. And to highlight the speech of the President before the UN General Assembly, we have with us over the phone Engineer Hassan Shaaban, political analyst. Thank you for being with us, sir. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, Engineer Hassan.
Yes.
Good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon.
We're speaking about the speech of President Fattah al-Sisi before the UN General Assembly. We're speaking about the vision of Egypt towards some of the Arab causes. We're also speaking about how the President started with negotiations with a matter of life or existence, as the President said, which is the Egyptian, Sudanese, Ethiopian negotiations about the Renaissance Dam. Let me speak first about this matter, as it is a very important matter for Egypt, and how you view, or how did you read the speech of the President in this regard?
First of all, I have to praise the speech. Very inclusive and very clear. I really appreciated finally that we are getting the case of the River Nile, which is a matter of life or death for us in Egypt, and we do not oppose the development projects in Ethiopia. We wish all the best for the Ethiopian people, but barely in Egypt, our share of the River Nile can make us survive. And any attempt to reduce this amount of water will be fatal for us. The President brought up this matter finally in front of the international community. All the negotiations in the past were between Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia. But finally, Egypt, after almost reaching a dead end, we brought it up in front of the international community, and I think the UN could play a major role in finalizing this dispute, because we're not really arguing about the establishment and the construction of any dams in Ethiopia, but we have to agree on the period of filling the lake behind the dam. You cannot really just assume that you can fill the lake and create the reserves required to produce electricity or irrigation, because this dam is meant to produce electricity mainly. So actually being considered in the design that the period of filling the dam should not be less than 7 years. And I hope that the UN and the international community will interfere to resolve this matter among the African countries, that are concerned with this matter.
Before we end this issue, because we have several also files that were brought in the President's speech, but here the head of state said that the repeated stalemate in the negotiations will have negative. I'm saying that the head of state, speaking about also the Renaissance Dam and the negotiations, he repeated that, or rather he reiterated that the repeated stalemate in negotiations will have negative repercussions on the stability and development of the region, rather of the whole continent. How do you view that?
This is very true. You see, you know, when we talk about Africa, automatically you get the image in front of you, the lakes, the sources of the River Nile, the Victoria Lake, the Tana Lake, the Blue Nile, the White Nile, Atbara, all of these tributaries, you know, all these branches of the River Nile. This is Africa, you know. So really, when we talk about a country being under threat of thirsty, and agriculture programs will be ruined, millions of hektars will be destroyed because of lack of water. Our Aswan Dam will be affected. The whole thing, the whole Egyptian formula that we formed over so many decades will be affected. So you're talking about really a big shake-up in the African, you know, phenomena.
Yes. Yes. Turning to another point, and the President spoke about several files and several solutions to Arab causes. Before we start with, of course, the Arab causes, the President warned of terrorism. And before I ask you about terrorism and his statements about terrorism, let me here say again, offer our condolences to the brave soldiers who lost their lives yesterday in Bir Abd at the very same time while Egyptians were defying calls for spreading chaos and definitely gathered to show their support for the shield of the stability of Egypt. Of course, the heinous attack was a cowardly one, and no one can speak about that. Terrorism. And it is not the first time that the President speaks about the dangers of terrorism and that Egypt is in fight against terrorism and how this phenomena would spread worldwide. Engineer Hassan, how do you view the urgent matter of trying to eradicate, or rather have to eradicate terrorism from its grassroots and those who are supporting it, financing it, spreading rumors in order to instigate the situation? How do you view the whole situation here and the urgency of tackling this matter?
You see, we've been fighting terrorism for, you know, a number of years now. You know, from the beginning, you know, it's obvious that the source of terrorism is very well known. The Islamic, you know, groups, radical groups that wants to reach you know, the top and lead the area, which is actually a very dangerous situation because
Hello? Right. I think before we continue on with our discussion or getting back to Engineer Hassan Shaaban, let's have this quick report and we'll come back for more discussion.
During his week-long visit to New York to attend the meetings of the 74th UN General Assembly, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi held a large number of meetings. The official account of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi on Facebook published a summary for the outcome of his visit that included encounters with 19 world leaders. In his speech to the 74th session of the UNGA, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi tackled several issues. The head of the state stressed that the Nile water is a matter of life or death for Egypt and urged the international community to convince all parties to be flexible and resume negotiations to reach an agreement. Regarding the Palestinian issue, he asserted that settling ongoing crisis is a precondition to create a stable international system, pointing to bold decisions needed to give the Palestinians their rights. The president noted that the General Assembly convenes amidst many world challenges that needs joint efforts to confront them. He also urged to lift Sudan from the list of countries sponsoring terrorism and asserted that it was time to adopt a decisive stance in dealing with the crisis in Libya. On the sidelines of the UN General Assembly meetings, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi met with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas at his residence in New York. Presidential spokesman Bassam Radi said that the meeting focused on following up with the recent developments on the Palestinian cause in light of the historic ties that bind Egypt and the Palestinians. President el-Sisi stressed that Egypt would continue with efforts to help the Palestinian people regain their rights and establish their independent state. President el-Sisi also held a trilateral meeting with Jordanian King Abdullah II and Iraqi President Barham Saleh. The leaders reviewed the outcome of the latest Arab summit as well as the development in the Middle East and means of uniting an Arab common stance towards the crisis in the region, atop of them the Palestinian cause. The leaders agreed to continue meetings and consultation as well as boosting coordination to boost the Arab national security.
Right, welcome back. And now we're joined by Dr. Sherif Amir, Professor of International Relations. Thank you for being with us. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, Dr. Sherif.
Yeah, the voice is very far. I can't hear you well.
I'll raise my voice as possible. And can you hear me now?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Right, Dr. Sherif, we're speaking about the speech of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi before the 74th UNGA summit, this round of meetings that was held in New York, and we're speaking about the vision of Egypt regarding several of the Arab causes. Here, the president, before he started with laying a vision to the Arab causes, the president stressed the necessity of ensuring that every nation can come up with solutions to its own problems.
I don't hear you anymore.
Can you hear me?
No, the voice
Hello?
is very bad. No, yeah, the voice went off.
So can you hear me now? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, I hear you now. Yes.
Right, Dr. Sherif, if you can just stand in somewhere where...
I'm standing in a good place. Okay,
Right.
I hear you.
Right. So I said that the president stressed the necessity of ensuring, in his speech before laying Egypt's vision, the necessity of ensuring that every nation can come up with solutions to their own problems. How far is this an important issue before he starts even with laying Egypt's vision towards core Arab problems?
Well, first of all, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi is the president of the African Union now, and he has this file with him. He carries all the burden of the concerns of the African nations. So that's why he started by tackling this issue. Is that at UN, all superpowers are gathered to discuss the common issues that should be solved. And I think that one of them, or there are several issues, but they are related. For example, if our partners in Europe are really worried about the illegal immigration, well, we have to find a solution for it, not only in security, but also in development. And who says development means that we have to work also in coordination with them in rebuilding the economies of the African nations.
No, Dr. Sherif, I was speaking exactly about the statements of the president, because we're speaking about Arab also causes. So before he started with laying Egypt's vision towards Arab causes, he started with a very important statement, which is the necessity of ensuring that every nation can come up with solutions to their own problems, and that there should be no foreign interference in the domestic affairs of the countries. How important was that statement to start before the president started with before laying Egypt's vision towards many Arab crises?
Well, foreign intervention, we are seeing that still happening now in many countries in the Middle East, and I think the president was giving a clear message to those who are trying to make it happen again as it happened in 2011 during the Arab Spring. The intervention in the internal affairs is unacceptable just because we are all sovereign countries. Egypt is a sovereign country. Now Egypt has a democratically elected president. He's the voice of 100 million Egyptians. He represents Egypt there. And the message was clear that it has to be respected, that this integrity and sovereignty would not be put aside or jeopardized because we have good relations with everyone. This is a good sign that we have excellent cooperation with everyone, but still our sovereignty is a red line, our integrity is a red line. The president was clear that this has to be, this is an internal issue. All the peoples of the world who have problems in the society, even in the West, they have demonstrated. Their governments try to find solutions with their people. No one accepts international interference. So I think the message now is very clear. Egypt is an equal partner for all these nations. As they respect their own sovereignty, we respect our also, and we expect from all these countries to do the same. So I think that the message is very, very, very strong and very clear that Egypt is now a new Egypt who knows how to determine its path. We have seen now that the Egyptians have gained enormous experience in democracy. They know how to decide, they know how to choose, and they have a leadership who has a vision and is accountable in front of their own people, not in front of anyone else.
How far the interference, directly or indirectly, of several of the foreign countries, if we speak about the Iranian interference in some of the Arab countries, if we speak about the Turkish interference directly and indirectly in the domestic affairs of our countries, because we are not speaking about its interference only in some of the Arab countries. If we speak about the interference of foreign powers in the Arab region and in the African continent, and how far did this help create instability, or rather further create instability?
Well, this is an excellent question because you have related between the instability and this interference. Well, look, Turkey is now trying to put some touches in all the region by creating hostile problems, whether in Syria, whether in Libya, whether in Egypt. And now they are trying, we have seen lately that even the Turkish dictator Erdogan went into the UN and speaking about other countries, including Egypt. I think that he has his own problems. He has to mind of it. We all know about the oppression that is taking place in his country. No one spoke about it. Egypt didn't say any word about it because this is an internal affair, and we don't wish to get into it. We know that the Turkish people, they're our friends, and they are suffering under this dictatorship now. So I think that what Turkey is doing now, they are messing with all the region, but Egypt is different. Egypt has its own power, has its own diplomacy, and its own leadership that is capable to rebuff this kind of interference. Turkey is occupying parts of Syria now. This is against the international law, and we urge the international community to stop the infiltration of the Turkish forces in foreign land, which is Syria. Turkey has assassinated some military leaders in Libya, in the national army who's fighting terrorism, and they knew about it and they said it clearly. We have to urge also the international community to stop this kind of international or state terrorism made by Turkey. This is a very important point. And I think that the Turkish leadership now is trying to put some instability. They're dreaming about putting some instability in Egypt. Well, it won't happen because the people now are very aware. But that does not mean that Turkey is accountable for all the crimes they're trying to make here in Egypt and trying to spread rumors and trying to talk about Egypt at international conferences. Well, we have our own diplomacy, we rely on it, and we know that the Turkish government now has lots of crimes against their own people first, and then they made it against other people. So they're in a bad situation, and they cannot speak about other countries. Concerning Iran, well, we have seen the Iranian infiltration in Yemen, and they never denied that they're supplying the forces, the Houthi forces, with the drones and the missiles which were used against oil refineries in Saudi Arabia. We know that Iran is working to destabilize countries like Bahrain and trying to be present in Iraq and supplying the Al-Hajj al-Shabi, the popular forces there, who claim that they fought Daesh, but it was the Iraqi army who was fighting Daesh. And now they're taking this as an umbrella to be a force as Hezbollah in Lebanon also. So we know that Iran has its own projects in the region, destabilizing first the countries through sectarian rifts between Shia and Sunnis. They're playing this card. They're playing it hard. They are playing also the card of division of countries. They wish to see Yemen to be divided between north and south, so they could have a safe haven for them. And they're trying to be present in the Red Sea, but fortunately we have an excellent, superb Navy who has controlled the Red Sea from north to south, and they know that Egypt is present. And I think that the message of President Sisi was a dual message. It was diplomatically and militarily message that Egypt is present. Egypt would not again lose its position. We regained our position. Yes, we have tough problems. Yes, we have internal debates, but still, it happens everywhere in the world. Every country has its own priorities and problems, but that does not mean that this country would not defend its interests. We will defend our brothers in the Middle East, in the Gulf states, I mean, and as we are defending Libya, try to fight terrorism. So the message is for Turkey and for Iran. We know they're having meetings on the level of the president in both countries. They think that they will have a share of the cake in the Middle East. Well, they know very well that Egypt is a solid rock. Upon it, all their dreams will be shattered.
Yes, indeed. If we speak about the president putting some of the solutions, or how Egypt regards solutions to those Arab causes, the president here spoke about the Palestinian issue, or he started with the Palestinian issue, and he said that it needs an urgent solution based on international resolutions, of course the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as the capital, and warned that the continued existence of this dilemma means a long-term drain on the Middle East region. How far do you view these specific words very much describing the Palestinian situation?
Well, President Sisi, from the first day when he took office after the democratic elections in 2014, he voiced his concern about the ongoing conflict, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, that it has no solution. And he said several times that Egypt is a mediator of peace. We are trying to find a solution for it. And then we started from reorganizing the internal house of the Palestinian front, meaning between Gaza and Ramallah. and we urge the unity between them under the auspice or the presidency of President Mahmoud Abbas Abu Mazen and the Palestinian Authority. And we urge also the international community to make some pressures on Israel to accept the dialogue according to the peace initiatives that were made and the international law and the UN resolution. Well, I think that President Sisi, when he went to the conference in Munich of the security and defense, he was quoted by the Israeli press themselves when he said that the problem in the Middle East, and he said it again this time, if it's not solved, we will have always a cause for terrorism. That's why we have to find a solution for it. And the Israeli experts themselves, they said that President Sisi made it clear and he made his point. And this is the core of the issue. So we have to find a solution for it. We cannot live anymore with all these instabilities and some groups who are using the Palestinian cause, like Iran. They're financing the jihad. They're financing the jihad in Gaza. And these are factions and also Hezbollah. And they're taking the cause of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as a pretext to be present and use force and destabilize Arab countries. Well, if we will find a solution, I think that these elements would not have a cause anymore to work on the ground.
Yes.
So I think that Israel has the interest to listen to Egypt's advice that we have to sit, we have to negotiate, implement the UN resolutions. Our friends in Ramallah also, they have also their concerns. So I think that President Sisi is very clear that the conflict has to be resolved as soon as possible. Yes, it will take time, but we have to start the negotiations, because if we want to find a solution for international terrorism, we have to tackle the nerve itself, the source itself, which is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Yes, finally here, and very quickly, sir, when the President spoke about that there should be, or now is the time for a decisive stand to put an end to the conflict in Yemen, and same way in Libya and Syria. How urgent is that?
Well, we're seeing that there will be spillovers everywhere. The conflict started in Yemen, and now it's taking a new stance. It's attacking Saudi sovereignty. We have seen that the Houthis are gaining more and more land. Even some of their leaders are claiming that they will be present in the southern part of Saudi Arabia, meaning that's a new stance that they will cross the borders and be established there. So this is very, very dangerous path that Iran is taking. The same thing in Libya. We will have to find a solution, because the countries like Turkey and Qatar, they thought that destabilizing, destroying Libya and stealing the oil there in the black market, I think that they thought they would threaten Egypt. Well, we have an excellent army who is standing on the border fighting there, but still, as President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said it clear, this cannot go for a long time, because it would hurt first the European Union, and then it will have devastating consequences in the whole region.
Yes, indeed. Unfortunately, our time is out. Dr. Sharif Amir, Professor of International Relations, we thank you very much for being with us and for your input. That was some excerpts of the President's speech before the 74th UN or United Nations General Assembly 74th session, and those were precisely how the President laid Egypt's vision regarding most of the Arab causes. Next Saturday, we'll be speaking about another Arab important file. Until then, it's goodbye.